So, to talk about a new healthcare transparency study from Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty, Miranda Spindt is joining me on the phone. Good morning, Miranda. How are you?
Good morning. I'm good. How are you?
Good. Well, thank you for joining me. I know that I believe you and Will Flanders worked on this particular study and would really like for you to talk about what it is that you discovered with regard to health or price transparency with regard to healthcare costs.
Of course. Well, thank you so much for having me on.
Sure.
So, with this report, what we're doing is really just offering a common sense solution that can address the root causes of rising healthcare costs. So, healthcare is one of the only sectors of the economy where patients really don't know what they're going to pay before going to the doctor, and that changes incentives. So, instead of responding to the demand of patients, hospitals and insurance companies can set prices and negotiate what amount of that price will be covered by the patient. So this can inflate prices and it can lead to a lot of variance in the final cost that patients will pay. So, for example, we found that a CT scan in Wisconsin ranges from anywhere between $858 to $2,803. And that can be a real problem. When you don't know what you'll have to pay, you may be concerned about getting a surprising bill. And about a third of Americans actually avoid going to the doctor because of this. And here in Wisconsin, we have the fourth highest healthcare costs in the country. So I can only imagine how much of an issue that could be here. So with price transparency, patients would be able to see what they're going to pay before going to the doctor. About 80% of healthcare goods and services are shoppable. So this means that these are non-emergency, pre-scheduled procedures that patients can look ahead of time at their options, pick the best service at the best price. And this would create this free market competition that has been missing in our healthcare system. So we take a look at what has been done around the country, federally, and the other states to really find examples of what could be done here in Wisconsin to lower our healthcare costs with price transparency.
So, who's standing in the way of actually making the or seeing this through? I guess.
There's actually a lot of great bipartisan support. There's 87% of voters support this, and in Colorado, the price transparency legislation was passed with a Democratic governor. The Texas legislature passed it almost unanimously. Even with the federal rules that are in place, they were put in place by the Trump administration, but have been continued to be strengthened and enforced under the Biden administration. So it's not really necessarily that someone's in the way. However, there's just a status quo of how our healthcare system has worked for however long, and it's really going to take legislation to change that and make sure that we do have a free marketplace in our healthcare.
So I have a friend that I have watched go through waiting to hear if she has cancer, waiting for the diagnosis, and then once she received the diagnosis, waiting for treatment, and all the waiting had to do with her health insurance company and whether or not, first of all, they were going to pay for the test to determine if she had cancer, and then the next step. And I mean, imagine now that you know that you have cancer, you have to essentially sit there and live with it until you can be treated. And that's what she has endured over the last, it's almost been close to a month now that she's been waiting for the diagnosis and then the treatment. Would this type of price transparency help that process for her and for others?
It might help certain parts of it. So the tricky part about healthcare is that there are situations where you have illness like cancer or you get in a car accident, things that are unexpected that are very costly. And that also kind of changes how we would buy that type of service just because you want to save your life. You're going to pay whatever that cost is in order to get that cancer diagnosis and start getting those treatments. But there are aspects, like you mentioned, getting the test, so that sort of thing where there's no reason where you should not know how much it's going to cost to get that biopsy and find out if you have cancer. So I think there are parts of that process in these emergency situations that could be helped with price transparency laws.
Would this also take a look at how healthcare organizations are incentivized to I mean, and I'll just use this as an example, and this evidently became politicized, the whole COVID virus and the treatment of it. And would this transparency or price transparency help expose those healthcare organizations that are receiving kickbacks if they offer a certain, or if they use or utilize a certain protocol to treat their patients?
I would say so. A big part of this would be patients being able to see itemized billing of what they're being charged for, so you can see if your doctors are charging you $100 for an Advil, or if they're using certain types of treatments. Maybe there are lower cost options that would work just as well, or things like that. So there's definitely a transparency. I mean, that's what it's called. So to what they're doing, what they're charging you, what they're giving you, and why. And they have to be able to explain why they're doing those things. So there's definitely ways in which that empowers patients to really see what the doctors are doing, and give them a say in, well, I don't know if I need this, or I don't know why this costs so much, and give them, an ability to advocate for themselves in this space.
It almost seems like healthcare systems get in the way, or I should say, insurance companies get in the way of the patient-doctor relationship, and I think that's
Mm-hmm.
often very frustrating for many people, because really, what it ought to be is a relationship between between you and your doctor, and whether or not you can afford it shouldn't be. And I think I guess that's the part that has always been frustrating for me, is that the insurance company, you are limited to whomever it is that, well, in most cases, people's employers. Is there, do you ever see a day where consumers can actually shop, and I remember the term, across state lines, to find the best health insurance for for them, as opposed to having to be tied to, whatever it is that their employer offers?
I suppose shopping across state lines could be possible, but what we're hoping with our legislation, at least in the state of Wisconsin, is that hopefully that wouldn't be too necessary. You would be able to, for example, have a comprehensive website where you just plug in your zip code and your insurance company or provider, and you can look at everything in your area and hopefully get a lot of options for where you could get your non-emergency pre-scheduled procedures. So maybe that, assuming that other states adopt this legislation as well, that could be a possibility going across state lines. But this is, I guess, a first step towards making sure that you can shop around in your own area first.
So, have you partnered with any legislators that are going to be taking up this? Well, I guess they would have to craft a bill, or perhaps
Mm-hmm.
you're offering to help them with that. Are there legislators that have stepped up to help with this?
Yes, definitely. We do have a couple legislators who are very interested. We're working with them very closely, and they'll be um, authoring legislation in this upcoming session. So we're really hoping that this will get through, and we're really optimistic for this.
And you did say it's bipartisan sponsorship. So
Yep.
are you finding that both Republicans and Democrats are in agreement on this?
Currently, as far as I know, we're working with Republicans who have taken interest in this with us, but we're very hopeful that this will be bipartisan legislation and be able to pass pretty easily.
Well, and the good news is, if we take a supermajority, Republicans take a supermajority, gosh, I guess we won't need Democrats for that, and then it would be even nicer to have a Republican governor to sign this into law. Well, thank you so much, Miranda. Time flies when you're having fun. I appreciate your efforts and all the research that you and Will Flanders, and I think maybe Kyle Conan is also in on this too. But
Yeah.
I appreciate all that your organization does for the citizens here in Wisconsin and beyond. And hope you have a great day, and look forward to our next chat.
Yep. Thank you so much. You too.
Thanks. Got to go to a break, and I'll be right back on WSAU Wisconsin Morning News.